Hi, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Trevor. And today, Kyle will be catching up on cinema.
Correct.
So for today's episode, I had Kyle catch up on Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions from 1995. Um, it's funny because I don't actually have too much of an attachment to this film, but there's just too many little elements in here that just seemed perfect for the show. We
Yeah.
get the return of a couple of familiar faces from previous episodes we've done. And I've mentioned it before, I think, on one of the catching up on Blu ray episodes we did, that I have a fascination with the works of Clive Barker.
hmm
I've read quite a bit about him, and I've watched a lot of media produced by him without ever having read any of his books. But I feel like there's certain themes in his stories and a certain flavor to his imagery and his content that I don't know. It to me it just kind of works for me. So I feel like I maybe owe it to him to pick up one of his books at some point. But Kyle, how did you feel about Lord of Illusions?
Well, I've only seen Hellraiser and I think Hellraiser 2. Yeah, I've only seen those two movies, so
Okay.
my knowledge of Clive Barker is contained to just those two films. I'm not crazy about those movies. I think there's some fun practical effects going on, and that's pretty much it I can say about those movies. But I can definitely see a huge difference in, I think, themes and tone between that franchise and this movie. And this came out well after Hellraiser, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
Yes. Several years after.
Yeah. So yeah, this was an odd movie.
It's an odd clashing of genres because you
Yeah.
have your noir detective story, uh, smack dab in the middle of a macabre like supernatural story about magic and sorcery, and they never quite gel. But like in the beginning, especially, it feels like two disparate elements that just don't work together. It feels like oil and water. But towards the end, it kind of started to make some sense to me what they were trying to accomplish with the story.
Yeah. Do you want to give the rundown of it real quick before we jump
Yeah.
into it?
So the story of Lord of Illusions concerns some characters who are affiliated with magic in the mainstream sense. Um, so we have a gentleman who practices. We have several people who practice like magic, like stage shows, kind of stuff like that. However, right from the get go, we're introduced to a character who wields true magic, like true otherworldly supernatural power. Um, and so the idea here is that there's this one true magician who wields actual magic. So right from the get go, we're told that magic exists. It's just very hard to find and very hard to learn. And basically, the idea is this character exits the film almost right away, and almost the entire film is just building up to their return. And there's repetition of a phrase, death is an illusion. So it's basically known to the core cast of the story that people can come back to life.
Yeah.
That death is something that is temporary. But yeah, it's a noir detective story concerning the world of magic, like magicians, both real and false.
Um, this came out before the Mummy, which was directed by Stephen Sommers, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
But also had Kevin J. O'Connor, or KJOC, as I like to call him. But I definitely saw some parallels between the two movies, kind of with the structure. There was a few instances where I'm like, that feels kind of like the Mummy. The ending kind of had that feeling for me. You have a group of followers trying to bring back this dude, and we need a sacrifice. I don't know. It felt like the end of the Mummy for me.
Well,
The ending
I mean,
of this movie.
the Stephen Sommers connection is mostly why I picked this movie.
That's
Because Kevin J. O'Connor and Famke Janssen were both in Deep Rising together.
I didn't know Famke was in this. I was watching the credits, and then it just goes Famke Janssen. I'm like, I looked at the year. I'm like, 95, a 95 Famke. Oh,
Yeah,
so
you perked
so
right
excited.
up, huh?
There was one scene in particular where she was wearing something, and I'm like, what's gonna happen next? Because that is a very deliberate choice of wardrobe. there. And what I thought was going to happen did, it just not as graphic as I was expecting.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so.
Another fun cast connection was one of the chief antagonists of this film. His character's name is Butterfield. Not exactly the most intimidating name, although he's quite creepy in this film.
Is he the Bowie eyes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His character's name is Butterfield, and he's mostly the chief antagonist for about 80% of the film. But I was not aware of this until I did a little bit of research, but I guess he was in There Will Be Blood with Kevin J. O'Connor.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so lots of fun little connections going on.
Do you think? So I was watching this, and we're introduced to Kevin J. O'Connor. You want to go ahead? Let's get into it.
Let's get to it later. So our opening shot, I believe, is just the desert.
Yeah.
It's the Mojave Desert in 1982.
Correct.
We get a really, really well considered set of shots here. There's no dialogue. It's all just score and the camera gliding across a series of props. A lot of weird arts and crafts, like weird shit you would find in like Texas Chainsaw Massacre type houses.
Yes,
like lots of bone sculptures and weird shit, unsettling stuff. All stuff that craftsmen put a lot of time and effort into making. Needs to be said, the score in this film is actually one of the reasons I picked it also, because it stuck with me from when I was a kid. Good use of choir. I don't say that often because I think choir is intrusive sometimes. But the score is very Danny Elfman-esque. I actually had to look up who did the music. His name is Simon Boswell, and I don't know any of his other music, but on his list of credits I did notice that the fella that was supposed to do The Island of Dr. Moreau in the 90s, he did a lot of his movies. Anyway, I think he's a very talented composer. Again, I haven't heard that much of his music, but I thought what he did for this film was very good. So yeah, we get lots of haunting shots of a very disturbing environment somewhere in the desert. Then we get some shots of some cars driving very quickly through the desert, heading to what looks like a church of some sort, but it's like dilapidated and it looks like a crack den now. Yeah. And again, there's like sculptures and crafts like made of bones and like doll heads and shit out front. And it turns out that Kevin J. O'Connor is driving one of these cars, and he has a posse with him, and they all pull up to this church, and they all have this solemn air about them. Like you can tell that they're rolling up on this place to do something either very bad or they're very scared of what they're going to find there.
They're familiar with the place, and I got that feel when I started watching it. It's almost like we just cut to it was almost like the second movie. It kind of felt like something else happened before that made them come back, and we're starting with that.
I think that one of the phrases that's tossed around out there, again without being expressly explained to us, is like he's gone too far this time. Yeah. And so then we cut to like the interior of this church / crack den, and we get Mr. Kruger from Seinfeld, dressed in robes. He's played by Daniel von Bargen. I call him Mr. Kruger because that's mostly what I know him for. He played the headmaster at the military school in Malcolm in the Middle.
He is very funny. I know him from Super Troopers, and I was wondering why he wasn't in the newest one, the Super Troopers 2, which was very funny. He passed away in 2015, is why he wasn't in there.
Mr. Kruger. No.
But yeah, he's very funny, but he's always a bad guy. If he's funny, he's usually a bad guy still.
He plays a good stern presence. Yeah. He doesn't do that in this movie. He's playing like full on psycho in this movie. Villain. He does it pretty well. Yes. He looks smelly and just awful to be around.
So we got a real cult situation going on here. He's wielding fire in his hand and he's talking to these people, much like a cult leader would. He's just saying vague isms, just if you want to be like me and stuff and so forth, drink the Kool-Aid.
And it needs to be said he's wearing white robes.
Yeah.
He clearly hasn't bathed in months, but yeah, he's wearing white robes. He's trying to be some sort of messiah.
Yeah.
The character's name is Nyx, by the way, and there's a lot of repetition in that, so you're never going to forget that.
No.
I really love the casting of his flock of these cultists, because really excellent casting in the sense that there's a good mix of ordinary looking people and like people you'd find at like orgies and shit.
Oh, no, they look like wild.
The variety of shapes and sizes of these people just looks appropriate. Like it looks genuine.
They look like they were from Wild Wild Country. Rajneeshpuram. That's what these. I mean, yeah, they're good looking people. They're pretty, like, they're not haggard. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, like why I say it's a good mix is because there's like the one guy who's often put front and center in the frame. He has glasses.
The David Koepp looking guy.
Yeah, he looks like you could, do business with him.
Yeah.
Like on a Friday or something. But then you have like the guy that's always handling a snake he never has a shirt on, and whenever they start like.
It's very sexual when he's holding the snake, too.
Like, you can tell he's there for the party, basically. And then you have, like, the true believers, and then you have, like, the heavy-set woman who's, like, just, like, draped over everyone that's near her.
You got the guy that's just there. I'm like, nah, I'm just here for the good coke and blowjobs,
yeah, you can tell there's the guy who's just there for the drugs. And then you have the absolute true believer, though, the Butterfield character who is sitting out front when everybody pulls up to the church. He has a very distinctive look. He has bleached eyebrows.
Yeah.
One like
Bowie eye.
One like blue eye or like white eye almost.
Yeah.
Like the iris is completely just blue, and the other one I think is brown.
And
he's got like Daisy Dukes on, by the way.
I want to put this out there. I have a lot of respect for people who can start cults, because it's a fascinating thing for you to convince a group of people that you are somehow a god or godlike. And I'm like, it's truly incredible. It's terrible, like it's a very stupid thing, but I'm like at a distance I'm like, I have to admire him, but I gotta know, do people in cults, have they never read about cults? Have they never?
Actually that's like a thought that I've had too. It's like, surely like you have some idea of what this is, right? It's like, you do know that this has happened before and hasn't ended well for many other people, right?
If you are wearing robes and you are carrying yourself like everyone else doesn't know what they're talking about and everybody else is wrong in that culty sense, like you need to like be able to step back and be like, oh fuck, I'm in a cult, like I didn't even realize it.
What you need to do is you need to have a recording of like one of their sermons or something, and you need to capture that moment where the one guy in the front row is like, oh, that's what this is.
Rajneeshpuram was incredible. It's the docu-series on Netflix, because you don't have Netflix, you don't know. Wild Country.
I know about this.
It's really good. Netflix they're great at docu-series. If they've done nothing else right, they've done that right.
Well, I mean, one of our favorite movie critics, like their website, I remember reading an article about attending a film festival and what it's like to attend a film festival. Basically, they were talking shit about the idea that like as soon as you exit the theater in the lobby, there's always these guys. They're the Netflix guys. Basically, if there's a documentary to be purchased for distribution, Netflix is there and they will outbid you. Take the money and shut up.
All right. So, anyway, with our plot,
they gobble up the documentaries, but they have a fucking mandrill in this cult, and it made the poster, by the way. I don't know why, because it's in 2 shots of this movie, but it's on the fucking poster if you look it up.
Yeah.
They have a fucking mandrill. I don't know why. It's just there.
I mean, we're establishing the movie. Like, we're not even 5 minutes in. We have child kidnapping, a baboon. Are they cannibals too? Where is this meat coming from?
Yeah. So when Kevin J. O'Connor and his buddies, there's I think 2 ladies and a guy with a shotgun.
Yes.
Yeah, and Kevin J. O'Connor has a pistol as well. Everybody's armed. That's what you need to take away from that. When they enter this this den, the crack den, they come in armed, and none of the cultists seem terribly disturbed by this. But
not at all.
It's important to note that the cultists recognize them. So right away we understand that Kevin J. O'Connor and his group of people are ex-members of this cult. Apparently they were part of the flock, but they broke away somehow. And the reason why they're here is because Nix had his people abduct a young girl.
Yeah, she's like 11, like 10 or like
she's
11
like
or 12.
11 or 12, I think.
She's on she's on the cusp of puberty, so you can kind of get where we're going next. Like,
yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But when they first enter the home, and they're pointing guns at these cultists, and again, they don't seem to consider the guns at all.
They're high on the master, man. They're just fucking we just got done with an orgy, a cannibal orgy,
they're
actually.
like rubbing up on the couches and the walls and stuff. And a couple of the people though were like butchering something.
Yeah.
On a table, we can't make out what, but they're making a mess, and they have like fresh blood on their mouths.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't doubt it if they're cannibals.
Well, the big
either that or they're just really shitty cooks.
Is that what he's like hanging out the drill? Is that what you're talking about?
No. So in Nix's like chambers, I guess, where he's keeping the girl. So the girl's chained up in a corner. They haven't like it looks like a crucifix.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's made of human bones. And when Kevin J. O'Connor finally gets to the chamber to try to rescue the girl, Nix has suspended himself on this crucifix.
Yeah.
And it's gigantic. It's a huge structure. Somebody, again, production design, like you said about the Hellraiser movies. Another reason why Clive Barker's stuff tends to appeal to me is that he has an eye for visuals.
Very much. Very much.
I think he is likely a multimedia artist. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if he's a pen and paper or a painter or whatever, but when it comes to designing sets and props and stuff, he does seem to give a shit.
Yeah. Well, I think
Nick spins around on this altar, but the mandrill I was referring to is the animal in the room. It's like a offshoot of a baboon with a blue and red face.
Yeah.
He just has one on a chain, and he uses it to terrify this girl.
It would terrify me. I'm an adult. Dude,
it's a baboon with a blue and red face. Baboons are known to tear faces off.
Yeah. I like my odds better with the baboon than a chimp, but I don't want to be faced with either one of them.
No, you don't want that.
I don't want that.
No, you don't want that. It's important to note here, and this is important, like character beat. Butterfield, the gentleman with the bleached eyebrows and the wonky eye, and the Daisy Dukes. Also important to note. Kevin J. O'Connor's character's name is Swan, by the way. And there's a lot of repetition of that, too, so you won't forget that either. When Swan and his group are approaching the building, Butterfield actually tips Nix off to this. So he's aware that he's coming. But he seems happy about it, because he wants Swan back. This is all told through just like looks more so than words. I actually really appreciated that. The way Butterfield talks of Swan and the way he looks at Nix tells you that he feels like a jilted lover, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like maybe not necessarily lover, but like he's not the favored son. He's more devout than Swan because he's stuck around, but you can tell Nix only cares when Swan's name comes up.
I feel like it's kind of like Nebula and Gamora.
Yes, very similar.
Like he's the Gamora. Like they were both kind of fighting for number 2, and KJOC was the Gamora. Like he was the one that has a conscience. Yeah, and then the other one is Nebula.
Well, Butterfield is Nebula in the sense that he'll forever be vying for, Dad's appreciation or whatever, but he'll never get it.
Yeah.
Even though he'll try 10 times harder.
That's the dynamic that I was getting.
And what I liked about it is that they don't talk about it.
No.
Like Butterfield doesn't get his big moment where he spills his guts. It's just the way he behaves and his motives spell it out to you.
Yeah.
And we don't need any more than that. It's a good example of storytelling done on the fly.
Yeah.
So, long story short, Swan's group, they enter the chamber. Nix tries to convince him to come back because apparently he has a really strong attachment to Swan.
Yeah.
It's never quite explained why, other than the fact that Swan seems to have taken to his teachings much better than most people. Because again, Nix can create fire in his hand. He's demonstrated this. He has actual power. In fact, he demonstrates it again when he's confronted. He inserts his fingers into Kevin J. O'Connor's temple. Like, he just penetrates his skull seamlessly and causes him to have visions. And what did you think of these effects?
I'm trying to remember that now.
It kind of reminiscent of Batman Begins. What the fear toxin stuff.
I was watching this last. Oh, okay. Now I remember. Okay, the faces start to melt a little bit.
Yeah, the faces start to tear open, and then there's like just mucousy goo underneath. It's like it looks almost like an insect covered in goo.
Yeah, that. I kind of the computer. There's a certain sequence we'll get to. The computer, the CGI.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It was pretty funny, but this was actually better. I think this was one of the better CGI moments in the movie. It's kind of neat. The faces are kind of like melting a little bit, and aren't they getting kind of glowy eyes too?
What I remember most is that the faces almost like tear open down the middle, and then there's it's a neat combination of effects, because I like effects like this where you can tell it was done at least partially practically, but it's masked in such a way that you can't quite put together how it was done. Like, there's too many layers to it, because clearly there's some form of CGI manipulation to remove their face, because you can tell because it's a little blurry and a little goofy looking, but underneath it, it looks like a practical creation done in the shape of a person's head. But the actual shape and the form of it is completely alien, to the point that it doesn't look anything like a face. It just looks like a what's-it that is uncomfortable to look at because it's gooey and awful. But yeah, Nix causes Swan to have these awful visions every time he looks at people. And in the ensuing chaos, some shots are fired. The initial one, though, is fired by the girl that's chained up in the corner. A handgun was dropped in the chaos. She puts a hole in Nix's chest, and he just won't go down. The gentleman with the shotgun has to shoot him as well. Then we get this really... I don't know how you felt about the mask prop. I thought it was pretty cool.
It looked really heavy.
Yeah.
But
it looked like it was made of actual iron or something.
Yeah, it looked legit. This was good. It was kind of painful to watch. Like, it was one of those like cringy moments where you like twist the screws into them. That felt very Hellraiser-ish when I was watching that. I'm like, yeah, that looks like it. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So what happens is Nix is effectively killed in the scene, but I don't think officially.
No,
he's incapacitated and immediately. What'd you call him?
KJOC.
Swan jumps on top of him and without even looking at the person, he calls for one of his associates. He just says bag.
Yeah.
And one of the ladies tosses him a bag with an instrument in it that's this horrible iron mask that he uses some sort of magical, like legitimate magical trickery to, like, he bites his thumb, I think, and drops the blood onto the screws that affix the mask to the person's actual skull.
Yeah.
And upon the blood touching the screws like automatically drill themselves into Nix's head. And it, like you had mentioned, it's pretty savage. And the idea, I guess, is that they have to use this mask to bind him in an attempt to keep him from coming back, because it's assumed that he will come back.
Yeah.
And then they apparently bury him alive. We don't actually see it, but that's the plan.
Very emo.
Drag him out and bury him.
This is very much Emotep. This is more of like the Mummy than I've realized. Yeah.
Kevin J. O'Connor, forever fated to do battle with mummies.
No kidding. So yeah, and then they win the day basically.
Yeah, and we flash forward to 13 years later.
So I read that Scott Bakula was in this movie. Now that is a name I've heard a lot, but can rarely place a face.
It's quite a face.
Quite a face, but he's completely opposite to another guy who I can always see his face, but I can never remember his name. But yet they're both about the same age and in the same kind of movies. I don't know the dude's name. He's in American Gangster. He's in some stuff, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
But Bakula, who is he? This scene in particular looks like John McClane the day before the beginning of Die Hard 3, because you've got him in like the tank. He's got like the tank top on with the gun holster, and he's drinking beer. And I'm like, this is John McClane the day before he has to go down.
Well, it even takes place in New York, like his introduction.
New York.
Yeah, New York. It looked
quotes.
like. Yeah, it didn't look like New York at all.
But he is fit as fuck. Now, I think we should probably go ahead and mention, if you're not familiar with this director, he is gay, and it's not. I've definitely seen it in the Schumacher Batman. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and defend Schumacher real quick. I know there was some like the statues in his two Batman movies were very detailed, but I was watching Batman Returns, and Tim Burton definitely had those Gotham big man statues in there as well.
Yeah, especially in Batman Returns.
Yeah.
They had those statues pulling the levers and stuff.
Oh yeah, I was like, lay off Schumacher. Burton was already doing that stuff. Just calm down.
No,
but
I think I've mentioned this before, and I don't think I need to be guarded saying it. I think Clive Barker, being a gay gentleman, I think from the UK,
I believe so,
is a huge part of the thematic content in a lot of his stories.
I don't see it in Hellraiser. That's the point I was going to make, was like in Hellraiser 1 and 2, I don't really feel it or see it in those movies. I definitely can see it quite a bit more in this movie, and there's actually some interesting details in here I want to bring up as we go along. But you can definitely feel that in this movie compared to his other movies.
A theme that carries over into a lot of his work tends to center around like taboos, so like unconventional romance. I mean, that's the core of the first Hellraiser, is a man and a woman who love each other that shouldn't love each other because it's taboo and it's harmful to the people around them. I could see that being experienced for gay men of a certain generation.
Yeah, very much.
Nightbreed is one of his more notable films, that the entire concept of it is basically the X-Men. It's like a society of undesirables and like unconventional peoples who create a surrogate family for themselves off in some other location, and then at the end of the movie it gets invaded by like mainstream society, the Man or whatever. And in this one, it's kind of funny, like the casting. I don't know why Bakula's here.
I can tell you exactly why Bakula's here.
I mean, he's jacked and he's handsome.
He's about 40 years old in this, but he has that's like the ideal body that I would want at that age. Like,
no, he's quite handsome and he's quite jacked. But the funny part of the casting, and it's not funny, I think it's actually kind of interesting, is that a lot of like the extras in this movie, and I think in most of Clive Barker's movies, are people from off the beaten path.
Yeah,
like people that in like a mainstream Hollywood production probably wouldn't have a place being an extra. Like a joke that I've had about Spider-Man 3 for ages now is if you look at the extras in that movie, everyone is fucking gorgeous.
Oh, really?
Like, everyone in that movie is fucking
I think Elizabeth
gorgeous.
Banks is the assistant to what's his face?
And
J.K.
what's her face?
Simmons.
One of the Deschanels is like a receptionist in the second one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but like just looking at the extras, like the people in the crowd, like saying, "Hey, look, Spider-Man!" It's like, holy shit! It's like I want to move to New York. But like in this one, I happened to notice that I actually had to look up his name. Sorry, but his name is Danny Woodburn. He's the little person that was in a lot of Seinfeld episodes with the beard.
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
You know what he does in this movie?
Huh?
He plays a crime scene photographer.
I didn't even notice that.
Exactly. Who other than Clive Barker, or somebody who has an eye for people from off the beaten path, would cast him as a non-speaking role that only has one shot, like one scene in this movie.
Well, it's interesting because they're not even making a big deal out of putting a little person.
That's that's the point I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Is that he's not making a big deal of it. And in the police station scene, there's like transvestites just there, and they're paid no mind. They're just there.
Yeah.
Like there's no attention. Like nobody's pointing at them, making a big deal out of it.
I'm not sure that's the correct word for it anymore, but since this is 1995, that's exactly what they would have been referred to as, and that's exactly what he was aiming towards. I'm not sure what the correct what to call
I
that anymore.
I
know what you mean
either.
Yeah.
But the point I'm going at is I'm trying to drive home here is that I'm not surprised that when it comes to casting and decorating his films and stuff, like you're going to get something different than you would from your average person.
Scott Bakula is playing a private investigator, PI, as they're known. And he is approached to do another job. And he's kind of reluctant, as most people who... Apparently, if you are a good detective or a good PI, a good job you just never want to take. Like, they never want to take the job. They're just so reluctant. And the story's no different here. He doesn't want to take it. The dude's like, gotta take it. And he's like, well, okay. They're drinking Budweiser. Nice little product placement there.
The way this scene opens is, I think the character's name is Loomis. I don't think we ever see him again, though.
No.
I think he's a detective or an actual cop or somebody. He basically kicks open Bakula's door. By the way, Bakula's character's name is Harry D'Amour. It's a very unusual name. Very catchy, though. I'm not sure if there was plans to have this be a franchise character, but I could totally see it. I mean, this is basically John Constantine, but in the U.S. From the Hellblazer comics, rather. John Constantine.
Yeah.
Same basic character. And I get the sense I could be wrong, but I think this is a franchise character of Barker's. However, in terms of films, I don't think he ever got past this one.
He would have been played by Treat Williams in the second one.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that. I mean,
this movie actually would have been way better if Treat Williams
I think Treat Williams should have been in this movie.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
I think Treat Williams has got a bit more dad bod than Bakula there, so I don't think he was going to make the cut.
I mean, he's basically playing the same role. Like, he has that kind of, like, swagger about him where it's like things are getting crazy, but, it's all right.
Thinks of himself as a little Indiana
He's like, hey, guys, let's watch the language. There's a lady in the room. But yeah, I really loved when we see the reason why Mr. D'Amour is drinking himself stupid in this scene. When Loomis is giving him this job, which is apparently like $10,000 to just find someone in LA, sign me up.
Yeah, no shit.
It's for insurance fraud too. It's not like it's a super dangerous gig or anything. We get this really cool scene where we get just a few flashes, and this is why it's good. It's just a couple flashes. We don't even come back to it later in the movie, except at the very, very, very end, of an exorcism. And the images, we only get flashes of it. It's only a couple of seconds of screen time, but we get some sort of long-haired demon lady, a young boy covered in blood being embraced by this demon, and there's like a lightning storm and shit blowing around this room. And this demon says to, this is from D'Amour's perspective, so it's talking directly to the camera. It says, "Touch the darkness, D'Amour, it's been waiting for you." And then it just cuts back to him drinking and talking to his friend Loomis. And like Loomis, I think, just asked him, like, what have you been up to or whatever? And he's just like, some stuff, clearly.
little smoking.
So apparently, and from the decorations in his apartment or his office or whatever, you can tell that he was on a case involving an exorcism recently. Mm-hmm. And from what we can glean from that flash, it did not go well.
No.
And that brings us to L.A. So now he has a reason to go to L.A. It's to find some guy who's doing insurance fraud.
A guy who looks like if Andrew Dice Clay was smushed down to about 5'2". He
looks like Rob Schneider in Grown Ups, if you've ever seen that.
Oh, I hate that. I hate Rob Schneider. Ugh. They had the thing where like Nicolas Cage breaks down his most iconic roles. They did that, and it's good. It's nice. It's a nice little video. I think I sent it to you. He talks about his characters, but Rob Schneider apparently has one. I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Really? This is what we want to know about his iconic roles? Anyway, I'm sorry. Don't get off on a tangent here. But anyway, so yeah. He's found him. Now, there's a funny scene here. Bakula's munching on a cheeseburger while he's casing the place out. He's found him, and he takes a bite of it, and he's just like, ugh, throws it away. Which, this is weird because California is known, they're in Los Angeles, if I do believe, is known for their cheeseburgers. They have the best cheeseburger franchises, apparently.
In-N-Out is, like, people swear by it.
Not what New York is known for. So wouldn't it make sense for him to be chewing on a piece of pizza and be like, ugh, this isn't New York at all? It was a weird...
That would be more appropriate, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a fun little detail.
It was. I'm like, well, where did he go? I'm like, I want to know where that burger's from.
It's like, Bakula, I need to know, like, so I don't go there.
Yeah. And maybe like culturally, like that is something. I can't remember if Clive Barker is British, but maybe that's just something like because that's the joke about Californians. All they do is talk about like the best burger place. No, you got to go to this burger place. And maybe that was his response, like, would you guys shut the fuck up about these cheeseburgers already? They all suck, and he just throws it out. But anyway, so Andrew, the Dice Man here, he gets a call, and he...
Dice Man is fooling around with two ladies of the night.
Yeah. He's what Bill Paxton wants to be doing in the dark backward.
I forget. Did we get some man-cock in here?
Close. I was paying attention.
Yeah, it was pretty close.
Because this is a Clive Barker film, so I was kind of paying attention to that.
Equal opportunity nudity, you know. I could have swore I saw a flash of man-cock, but can't be certain. I'm not going to go back and check.
No, I'm not going to go back and check. I don't think we do, but we get very, very close, which wasn't super popular in movies at the time. It's still not.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But anyway, so he gets a call, and he has to. Surprisingly, he's like, he gets a call, and he's like, I have to leave my hookers here for a little bit, but he's totally fine. He's not even like, come on, man, like I got a thing going here. He's like, all right, I got to go run an errand real quick. So Bakula's following him past the club from the Mask, or We Own the Night. Either way. He's following him, and he's kind of walking up to the back entrance of a building, up a staircase, and Bakula follows him, and the guy goes in, and as Bakula's coming up the stairs to kind of follow him, the dude just jets back out of the building and
he knocks it down the staircase.
Knocks him over a little bit, so now you have Bakula's attention.
So Bakula, instead of chasing after the guy, he decides to investigate where the guy was running out from.
Oh, and he's a PI,
he finds,
of course,
some bloody footprints to begin with. He has a revolver with him, by the way, because he's a PI. He walks into this place, and it's revealed to be a tarot card reading establishment of some sort. And then he is accosted by a skinhead with jagged, like filed down teeth to be like fangs, basically.
There's something I want to point out real quick. There's a really interesting detail in this scene. I don't know if you noticed it, but there's a bust, and it's actually a phrenology cranium. So it's a bust of a head. And are you familiar with phrenology at all?
A little bit.
It's the study of the shape and size of the cranium as an indication of character.
I've seen Django.
oh yeah, that's right. That is in there. That's a little bit, yeah.
That's the dark side of it.
That's very much the dark side of it. But this was a legit practice before modern psychology, and they thought that touching bumps was like indicative of the brain. And I just thought that it was a weird it was an interesting little detail to throw in there of all the things, because nothing's in a movie on accident, and I just thought it was interesting that a phrenology bust was in there.
Clive Barker has demonstrated time and time again he's interested in like the occult and like supernatural kind of stuff. Antiquated, medical practices I'm sure fall under that, because at some point most forms of technology and science are regarded as witchcraft at some point, before it's fully understood. So I could totally see that being in that same umbrella.
One of my favorite one of my favorite shows, Archer, which I've been trying to get you to watch for a long time now. I think I might just get you that. I might get you the first few seasons on Blu-ray for Christmas.
Don't.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
I can probably find it.
But there's a funny gag. One of the characters is supposed to be. He was raised by Nazi scientists in Argentina, and it's pretty funny. He's talking to somebody. He's a doctor, and he's talking to him, and they're like, "What's the problem?" He's like, "You don't know what the problem is." He's like, "You don't even have to be a first-year phrenology student to know what the issue is here." it's just in passing, like really you learn mostly about phrenology if you're a psych major. So it was just a nice little detail they throw into the show. But I just thought it was an interesting thing for him to throw in here.
Well, and also, again, this is an office that specializes in tarot and things like that. I would imagine that it would be appropriate for them to have something like that in their office.
Yes,
it fits the motif. But yeah, so this guy comes at him like a fucking freight train, and they have a scuffle. Bakula gets some shots into his ribs, and then the coup de grace is your phrenology bust smashed over the skinhead's head, and it's used to knock him unconscious, however briefly. So with that guy dispatched, Bakula collects himself and moves even deeper into the building, and then he comes across a pretty horrific scene of the black gentleman from the opening of the film, the one with the shotgun, who had helped take out Nix, now older, obviously, and mustachioed.
I almost didn't recognize him at first. I'm like, oh, that's the guy from the
mustache and the salt and pepper hair made it a little difficult, but yeah, you figure it out eventually. He's like strapped to a chair with many knives and scalpels just arbitrarily just inserted into various parts of his body. He looks like he's not having a good time. And then Mr. Butterfield makes his reappearance in the film, played by a different actor. Again, the same guy that was apparently in There Will Be Blood alongside Kevin J. O'Connor. I don't know who he played in There Will Be Blood, but
I don't remember.
He's still got his bleached eyebrows and his wonky eye, and now he has some what are they? Skin tight bronze pants, I think. They're like latex bronze colored pants.
Yes, it's a deliberate wardrobe. That's pretty much what he's wearing. He looks like he's going to a club, like he just got back from a club or going to a club.
Even the way his hair is done up, like he's styled.
Yes, very much.
But he's doing some pretty dirty work on this guy. But yeah, he's got gloves, skin tight V-neck shirt of some sort. Looks, and then his skin tight pants. He's a svelte fella, by the way.
Yeah.
And it turns out he's torturing this gentleman, the owner of this establishment, for some sort of information. We don't quite know what it is, but he's asking about names. Jennifer Desiderio is the big name that's thrown out there. We're not entirely sure what he's talking about, but apparently whatever it is he wants it really bad. So there's a funny moment here that I don't know if it was intentional, but it got me laughing. So the skinhead guy with the jagged teeth, while Bakula's standing in the door frame observing this scene, the skinhead guy runs in from behind him, and just as he's coming into the doorway, Bakula slams the door in his face, and it's like a Bugs Bunny cartoon or something. Like he slams the door in his face and knocks him out again. So he just turns around for a second, and then he's like, "Oh, well, that took care of itself." And then goes back to paying attention to Butterfield. And they have a little bit of an exchange, and for the second time, the skinhead comes at the door, except this time he's in a frenzy, and we get this cool shot of him using his fingers to tear into the wood around the doorknob. So effectively removing the doorknob from the door with his fingers. Yeah, he's a very strong fella apparently. Yeah, and he busts in the room, and again, Bakula gets rid of him without any real effort. He just like throws him out the window.
Yeah. No effort.
And in the ensuing chaos, though, Butterfield escapes. And the black gentleman has a exchange with Bakula here, where he grabs him by the hand, and he basically tells him, "I'm going to read you now." So he's going to give him a free tarot reading. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And he tells him, "You must walk the line between heaven and hell." I think he even says, "It is your destiny." And I was like,
destiny.
Maybe not say that. Like, people don't like to be told that.
No, I don't like to be told that.
But yeah, he unfortunately expires right after that. Oh yeah, fun little detail here. After this guy dies, Bakula turns over one of the cards on the table in front of them, and it's a series of swords. It's a big arrangement of swords facing downward. Mm-hmm. Put a pin in that.
I didn't even notice that. I was wondering why he was. Well, yeah, put a pin in that.
And yeah, the ensuing crime scene, by the way, is where the guy from Seinfeld, the little person, shows up as the crime scene photographer. Again, no words. He's just there for like one shot.
And Bakula's talking to the detectives. He's like, "Listen, I'm a PI. I was following this guy, and this is where it led me. I'm not a part of this, but yes, I'll be available for further questioning if you do need me." And then can we introduce Famke?
Yes, please.
So as soon as I found out that Famke was in this, we get a shot to a very nice Los Angeles home with a huge pool, and there's somebody swimming in there, and up out of the water comes 1995 Famke Janssen, looking just on point.
Yeah,
it's
quite spectacular.
Yeah. She's the maid is bringing out some food, it looks like, or she's coming out to talk to her about something. She's like, "Oh, the dude, KJOC, he seems upset about something." So cut to Kevin J. O'Connor. He's alive, and this is apparently his home. He's in his office, and we see, like, it looks like some Houdini looking artwork on his wall. So we kind of get the gist that he's a very successful magician, and he's puffing on a cigar. He's actually not even puffing on a cigar. He's smoking on a cigar. And this looks like early morning too. I think this is the following day, like early in the morning, and he's stressed out about something. And he mentions to Famke, like, she's trying to calm him down, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to be there tonight. I've got a show tonight, and I've got a new illusion I'm doing." But do they mention that the illusions that he's doing are not magic? Or I'm sorry,
not yet.
Okay.
The main piece of information that gets exchanged here is he's acting like he's on a Valium or something. Mm-hmm. Like, he's very aloof in this scene, and she actually like puts her arms around him from behind and is like trying to be comforting. In fact, I think the maid even prefaces things by saying he has something on his mind.
Yeah.
As it so happens, he has a newspaper with him in his study or his office or whatever you want to call it, and it has an article in it about the gentleman who we just saw die. Mm-hmm. The character's name is Quaid. I just remembered that. It's a very memorable name for a variety of reasons. Start the reactor. Free Mars.
That's what I was thinking.
So it turns out that he is now aware that this guy died, and it's apparently very distressing to him. Mm-hmm. We don't exactly know why, although we can assume that it has to do with their mutual fear of this cult. Mm-hmm. And the way he mentions it to her, he says Quaid is dead, and her expression kind of tells us that she's in the know as well.
Yeah. She's supposed to be I think she's supposed to be playing the young girl.
We learn that much later, but yes, she is.
Yeah.
Character's name is Dorothea, which is a very common name. No, yeah. That's a very strange name.
Yeah, Dorothea.
But I think this leads to the. I was calling him the consigliere.
Yeah, the butler, or
the character's name is Valentin, but in my mind, I kept thinking of the consigliere from The Punisher, the 2004 one.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
He's like some sort of assistant that's like way up in all their business though.
Yeah.
He's like too involved to the point that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, he's got more. I mean, he's like Alfred.
It's like, does he wipe both of your butts? It's like, has he seen both of you naked?
Well, I mean, they're housekeeper, like the maid or housekeeper. She seems to be very much like involved with them. Like he's got something on his mind or whatever. Yeah, like you said, like he seems upset this morning. Like, well, what the fuck do you care? Like, seriously. But so yeah, so
she comes down the stairs and she has a fabulous white dress.
Yeah.
Some of her outfits in this movie are pretty horrific. Like the pink one. The pink one is.
But the reason one. For that, yeah.
This white dress is pretty awesome. Works for me. She comes down the stairs and she has the newspaper with her and she hands it off to Valentin, the consigliere, and says, "This gentleman," and we have a picture of Bakula in the newspaper. She says, "This gentleman, Demore, could you find him for me?" Then I guess we immediately cut to a graveyard because that's, you know, a normal place to meet people. And Valentin has found Demore and brings him to meet Famke. And that's why I have many notes I have many notes that start with oof. Oof for Famke, but a lot of them say oof Famke's wardrobe, but in the good way. But then right next to that I have oof Bakula's wardrobe, but in the bad way.
Yeah.
Because his attire in this cemetery scene is very Seinfeld-esque. Everything's very tucked in and very baggy at the same time. It's just not a good look.
Not a good look. He doesn't want to be the first pirate. So yeah, do they talk before they get to the magic show, or do they meet at the magic show and go sit down?
They talk, which leads to the magic show. So basically,
no, I mean,
she wants to talk to him because she wants him to drop whatever it is he's doing, whatever investigation he's currently on, to pivot towards investigating the death of this Quaid guy.
Yeah.
And the framing in this scene I really liked. A lot of really tight close-ups. Again, the casting is a little weird because Bakula just looks like a really friendly guy.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't look like a hard-boiled detective. Like, I mean, he's got the build for it, I guess, but like his face, he just seems like a really cool guy.
He's not drinking beer. Like,
yeah, and that was another thing that bothered me is the first time we meet him, he's haggard. Like, he actually looks like maybe he did a bit of method acting here. Like, maybe he didn't sleep all night or something. Because, like, his eyes are, like, bloodshot. He looks like shit. He looks like boiled crap.
Yeah.
And he's got, like, 5 o'clock shadow and then some.
He still looks good.
But as soon as the movie transitions to L.A., meaning the very next scene, he's completely clean-shaven. He looks like $1 million.
Well, I think he's on the job. I don't think he was working before, and that's why he's all... Like, he's just drinking a lot, not sleeping, and now he's on the job. He's got his mind off of it a little bit.
I guess. It's just I think he cleaned up a little too nicely, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, it's poor casting, because if he's supposed to be playing like this, oh, he's just been drinking, he's going through a lot of stuff. Like, Scott Bakula looks like he runs 6 miles a day. Like, pumps out 200 push-ups, and then, off to the office, you know? Like, that's the kind of shape he's in.
This conversation is what leads us to the magic show. And as you had mentioned, KJOC.
Oh. You know what I just realized? I was looking at the IMDb and you mentioned that one actor was in There Will Be Blood. He is also in American Beauty, playing alongside Scott Bakula. I believe that's his partner in that movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, the connections, man.
Yeah.
Good call.
Because Scott Bakula, I remember Scott Bakula in that movie. I'm like, oh, interesting.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not aware of that.
Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't his partner, but he is also in American Beauty with him. But anyway, so yeah, we're to the magic show now. This has got to be one of the most erotic openings for a magic show that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't know what it was about the early mid-90s, but figure skating and magic really fucking big. I remember this shit was on TV all the time. I remember my family was watching this stuff. I was exposed to a lot of figure skating and a lot of magic, and I remember the magic. I remember, like, the show in the movie feels very genuine to me. Like, I've seen shows along these same lines.
Well, actually, there's something that Kevin J. O'Connor mentions to Famke is about being a Vegas, getting a contract for a Vegas magician, which...
Yeah, this is supposed to be his last show in L.A. Mm-hmm. So it's like the last of a tour, I guess.
So he comes out, or he's actually peeking through the curtain. He's like, "Who's that dude sitting next to Famke?" And he's
like, real pissed. Like, he's upset.
He just like his butler friend just kind of massages his shoulder a little bit and just like, "Don't worry about it."
I'm convinced he has seen both of them naked.
He's been in there at the same time.
He's been in there, whether they wanted him to be there or not.
Yes.
There's a crawl space of some sort.
A frenzy of hand movements. So he starts doing his magic. He actually he floats up, and the two grips are like, "Hey, how's he doing?" And he's like, "Hey, it's magic. You see the wires?" He's like, "I don't see no wires." And and then he floats back down, presents himself, and he starts doing his magic. And I think that his last trick is supposed to be this newest one, or at least this is some.
Yeah, the opening movement of the show is, as is customary for 90s magic, a bunch of scantily clad dancers.
Very scantily.
With whimsical, mystical music playing, like new agey type shit.
The ladies have basically bras that were chopped off, and it's just like the strings, but their boobs are just out.
Yeah.
And
dude, I'm not surprised by any of this, Kyle.
It's very, very
I was raised on this. Yeah. But yeah, we get lots of bluish purple lighting, new agey music. This is, again, I was not surprised by any of this. These production values seem very much of their time. Some choreographed dancing. And then we get this tremendous sculpture of some, like, demon or something that looks like it had a lot of love and effort put into it. It's pretty fucking cool, actually. And it's like holding a glass case that's vaguely human-shaped. And there's, like, a skeleton in it. And it fills with red sand, and then the sand molds to the shape of the glass case. The dancers pull the case apart, so they remove the glass, and then the sand explodes, and KJOC is in there and says, like, "Welcome to magic," or something like that. But also in this scene, again,
welcome to Google. Yeah, you guys feeling great?
He needs one of those headsets, like with the little microphone.
Yeah,
it's a corporate event.
It's a corporate retreat.
It's a private corporate event for Amazon or something.
Let's get social.
Social.
My God.
Thank you for showing me that. By the way,
that was great, isn't it?
Social. You know he wrote that.
He did, but I think he was trying to go for like the not the B-52s. The B-52. Social. Yeah, that's very much
social.
Like social.
Social.
Yeah, I think that's what he was going
social.
For. Jeez.
More brownie points for casting. I really like the audience in this scene.
They look legit.
Yes, they looked legit because it was not a black tie event. People were well dressed, but they all looked like LA weirdos. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure a large majority of them actually just were.
Yeah.
I like that, like, it wasn't just, hoity-toity, like, waspy types. There was a lot of blue-haired ladies in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, by the way, I'm almost positive the heavyset gentleman, Borat's sidekick.
Yeah.
I think he was in the crowd.
He might have been in the crowd. He definitely walked up the carpet.
Yeah, he comes, he like exits a limo. With like a cigar or something. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he was in the crowd. I was like, hey, it's the fat guy who I've seen too much of his body.
Yeah, very much.
But yeah, the last illusion. Kyle, do you want to walk us through his new trick?
So his last trick, I'm pretty sure, is what influenced David Blaine. He has put himself on the rack, as it were. He's splayed out like a star, and above him he has a rotating swirl of swords is the best way I can describe it. The swords are just, think of like a spiral, and the swords are just around there, and they're kind of going the opposite way as him. And he spinning as well as the swords?
Yeah,
I think they're
both
spinning.
rotating.
So the trick is he's supposed to escape while these swords are coming down, and he's supposed to move out of the way. Well, wouldn't you know it, he's able to get one hand out, but that's the only hand he gets out. And it looks as though this is part of the show, and if this is why I say David Blaine, is because David Blaine he likes to stick himself with stuff. He'll do like the sword down the arm kind of thing. It's stupid. But one sword gets away, just impales his arm, just bam, he just gets him. And so they're like, oh no, this isn't going right. And then another sword hits him, and like, this really isn't going right. And I think it's Bakula who's like, I don't think this is part of the show. Yeah. These swords just basically thum 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 over a period of like.
Yeah, the crowd is very slow to react.
Yeah, they're not.
This man is bleeding all over the place and screaming, and it takes until he's basically dead for anyone to even exit their seats.
He gets a kill shot, I think, right to the chest, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's like torso shot.
Yeah, and he's dead.
Yeah, they close the curtain. People are evacuated from the theater, and Bakula approaches the stage, and he sees like some frayed wires or something underneath the rack thing that KJOC was on, and he just decides to investigate. Nobody stops him, and nobody comes with him either. It's kind of weird. Famke's distraught, and the butler, I think, is equally distraught.
Yeah, they're both distraught.
But Bakula goes underneath the stage and investigates, and sure enough, Butterfield and Skinhead Guy both show up again. They have a scuffle. Butterfield slips away again.
Of course.
Go figure. However, the Skinhead gets impaled. It's kind of tasty.
Yeah, he gets impaled.
So the awesome sculpture I had mentioned, the demon thing.
Yeah.
It has like a mouth with a spout coming out of it. It's like a steel cylinder where the red sand pours out from. Somehow it's been moved under the stage, and Bakula like pulls a lever or a doohickey or something, and it slides forward, and the cylinder impales the Skinhead Guy, and we get a cool shot from behind of like him bleeding all over the place, and this thing like pouring out sand out the hole in his back. Very reminiscent of Bennett's death in Commando.
So I think he's bleeding sand is what's odd about it.
Well, it's got the spout is shooting out sand, but the space around the spout he's bleeding from.
Oh, he is bleeding. I thought he was bleeding sand. That's why Bakula was like looking at him.
He has like supernatural powers of some sort, because we do see the immediate aftermath of him getting tossed out the window. We even get like an off piece of dialogue during the crime scene of investigation that like, oh, I wouldn't worry about him, like he fell out the window, every bone in his body would be broken, and then we see him right afterwards, he's fine. However, he's pulling glass out of his torso, and does seem to be in pain, but not nearly as much as you would expect. So he's a super tough guy, but killable.
He's dead now.
He left me in charge.
So Bakula leaves the place, and he's going to go follow up on something. Now, where's he at? Because this is where he ends up talking to the butler boyfriend. And where is he at when he's doing this?
Is he talking to the butler?
Yeah, because this is the bribe scene.
Oh, so Bakula gets back on track. So we get a nice scene in the police station after the accident, quote-unquote accident, where Bakula is trying to console Famke, who is, upset that her husband is dead, and he tells her that, I'm doubling my efforts to investigate this because I care about you, and your husband's dead, and I understand that this is a big problem. Which leads to him going back to Quaid's tarot card office, so where everything started for him, and he just walks into this active crime scene. He just like barges his way in, and he roots through some of Quaid's stuff, and he opens a secret compartment in in one of his desk drawers. And he finds an address book, and he remembers the name. Was it Jennifer Desiderio? I'm not sure if I got this order of events correct, but yeah, and that's where the bribe happens. Is Valentin actually shows up at Quaid's office and offers him the money there, and says, "Please leave, like just leave this alone. Go back where you came from. This doesn't need to be investigated." Which I think. Oh yeah, we did get the order of events wrong. That comes a little later.
What happens after his death?
So after he dies, we get the magic castle. Maybe my favorite scene in the whole movie. Do you remember the magic castle?
Yeah,
it's where all the magicians hang out.
Well, I was going to mention that in the bribe scene that there's a small detail. There's a rainbow flag. It's a rainbow ribbon up against the wall.
I had not noticed that.
Good eye. So Steph and I, my girlfriend and I, we watch Rocky Horror Picture Show each year, and around Halloween, it's a fun time, and I think that the Rocky Horror Picture Show came out, I think, about 2 years after the rainbow flag was created, symbolizing, the gay rights movement, more or less. Of course. We thought it was interesting that it was literally like at the same time, and I don't know if the Rocky Horror Picture Show was aware of that, if that had anything to do with it, but I have a theory that was kind of part of it, like that was kind of help putting it out there. I can see that. Yeah, but it was just a nice little touch. I saw the rainbow in the background. That's, again, nothing is in a movie on accident, but it also wasn't really well known and popular. And gay people didn't have the rainbow yet. Like, it still wasn't an official thing. Now it's undeniably gay pride.
Long story short, gay pride.
Yeah. But it was just something I caught when I was watching it this time.
No, I hadn't noticed that. Good eye. But yeah, we go to the Magic Castle to do some investigating. Vincent Schiavelli is fucking great.
Isn't he in Batman Returns?
Mr. Schiavelli is in. Yes, he is. He plays the organ grinder with the monkey and the Gatling gun. Mm-hmm. He is a well-worn character
organ with the monkey with the Gatling gun. That's just such a funny sentence.
What, you mean you don't have either of those things? What kind of household are you running? But yeah, Vincent Schiavelli is a well-worn character actor. He's I think he may have passed, but I think he was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Danny DeVito. Mm-hmm. He's been on like Star Trek. He's been in a lot of stuff, and he's always welcome. Like, he's always great. He plays a magician at a establishment called the Magic Castle, which Bakula goes to investigate because he's looking for potential leads regarding who may want to murder KJOC. And his thinking is that
the magicians.
People are either jealous or envious of his magical talents, because that's what he was told by Famke, is that he doesn't actually have many friends in the magic community, which is a community. So Bakula goes to this place called the Magic Castle, and it is populated with just a bunch of weirdos, like a bunch of strange fellas who you can tell, like, magic is their life. Like, they all live and die by their gimmicks, and especially magicians in this particular time period, it was like wrestling. It wasn't yet fake. It's like the magician's code and stuff. You never reveal your tricks. So this is a very tight-knit community, and the casting of these characters, like, everybody is a little off-kilter and a little, again, off the beaten path. It makes for some interesting visual elements. And Bakula sits down with these guys, and I think they're having like drinks and maybe playing cards. They're having
straight up whiskey. Yeah, they're playing cards and drinking whiskey.
Yeah, and he tries to probe them for information about Swan and like if anyone had a problem with him, and Vincent Chiavelli is very standoffish, doesn't want to share anything with him because he's convinced that, like Green Street Hooligans, he thinks he's a journo, and he wants to just out all their magical secrets and stuff. And it becomes very clear that most of the people in the room did not, in fact, like Swan. But
it's funny you mentioned. Oh, you mentioned how magic was very popular at this time, and that this was still when they were trying to be secretive, like don't tell, like the Magician's Code, don't tell tricks. Penn and Teller literally had a show where they were showing you how to do how these tricks were done.
Oh yeah,
I remember watching it.
They did the same thing with wrestling, actually. They had I forget what they called it, but it was like there was Beyond the Mat, the documentary that came out in the 90s. Yeah. That was like the late 90s, I think. But then there was also a TV series, and they did this for Magic also on like ABC or CBS or something. That it was just the masked magician guy.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing with wrestling, where they would show you like all the tricks of the trade, but the people presenting it to you were very adamant about not being shown on screen because it still had that like carny kind of mentality to it. It's like, we don't talk about these things.
You know, I bashed on it at first, but I think it was actually a really good idea because I remember Penn and Teller vividly doing the gun, like catching a bullet in your teeth. And I could see how they're like, we need to show kids that this is fake stuff because these dumbass backyard wrestlers are like paralyzing each other because they're not getting it. And like you have these magicians, like some idiot trying to catch a bullet with his teeth and just got shot in the head.
Like, or sawing their girlfriend in half, shit like that.
We have to show them that this stuff is fake. We have to do this. And they all watch Primetime, so let's just get it out there. Gosh,
yeah, my favorite, like, probably the best line the whole movie comes from Vincent Chiavelli. So while he's talking to Bakula, he has some sort of vaguely Eastern European accent.
Vague is the way to describe it.
Yeah. Yes. I'm not going to name a country because it is vague at best. It's hazy. As he's storming out of the room because he doesn't want anything to do with Bakula. Bakula says like, "Nice accent, by the way. Is it Brooklyn?"
Hey, fuck you!
Yeah, Chiavelli turns around, completely drops his accent, and says, "Hey, fuck you, all right?" Yeah, I was like, that's fucking great.
Yeah, so is this where he roots around a little bit, or does he leave and come back for that?
The main thing that comes out of this is a character by the name of Billy Who.
Yeah.
Approaches him as he's on his way out. And Billy Who was actually at the table drinking with everyone. So he's a magician. He pulls him aside and says, all those other guys don't want anything to do with you, but I'm willing to help. Mm-hmm. So put a pin in that. Then we get the scene that I've made a note here, and I'm curious to see if you have anything to say about this, but sleeping sideways on the bed. Is this a thing that is done?
Sleeping sideways? Oh, no. So that's. I'm glad you brought that up. I did notice that. Because he is, what's the word I'm looking for? When he's on the phone, he's just like, oh, God. When you fall asleep like that, I think that they're trying to say that this person was so drunk that they couldn't fall asleep a normal way, or they were so tired and they were like, maybe they were like reading or like studying or something like that, and they fell asleep like that. I think they're trying to say like he drank himself to sleep, because that's when he wakes up, he's just like doing the what?
Oh, he sounds just done. Like he does not sound anywhere near awake. He sounds like he got the shit kicked out of him. Yeah, which he to be fair, he kind of did twice in the past 2 days.
But it wasn't today. That's what I'm getting at, is that I think there's an implication that he was drinking, and I think that the beer in the beginning was kind of setting that tone. And is he sweating in this point? He's definitely got his shirt off.
He's sweating profusely. I mean, to be fair, he did just have a really bad nightmare, and this is actually what prompts him to...
Oh, okay.
This is how he remembers that character's name, the Jennifer Desiderio. This is what prompts him to go reinvestigate the crime scene, is his nightmare. So he has some sort of, like, ESP or something.
Yeah.
The reason why I brought it up is because, the scene begins with him laying on the bed sideways, even though the bed clearly has a right way to lay down in it. And yeah, his phone rings, and it's Famke.
I'm gonna say he was drunk. That's
why I brought it up, because I figured like you might have some insight, and it sounds like that's probably the case.
Yeah, I've slept in a gutter before.
But yeah, Famke, very nice nightgown, by the way.
Yeah, so he does I think he's fucking with us. I think that Clive Barker's messing with us, because I was like, is this where Famke's gonna show nudity? Because he teases it quite a bit. Like, he's got her in a bathing suit, he's got her in a nice dress, he's got her in this particular scene, she's in a gown where you can see through pretty well, not very well, but pretty well. And he's got Scott Bakula like in some nice shorts. He's all tan. He's fit as fuck. He's all sweaty.
He's all greased up too.
Yeah, he's looking good. And he's like, I'm gonna make these guys think it's for them, but it's not for them. It's for the other guys. He's giving the eye candy to.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but the two of them do hook up later in the movie. And that's when she's wearing the pink dress, like the most hideous fucking garment ever put to film.
But you can tell she's not wearing a bra in this. Like, it was very explicit.
Yeah, no.
And that's when
there's
I'm
a couple
like,
shots in there where it's like, ma'am,
yeah,
shut the window or something. Like,
yeah, that's when I thought, I'm like, I didn't know where this movie was gonna turn. I didn't know where this was gonna go. So I'm like, is he gonna? Because he was showing, boobs at the magic show. So I'm like, she's wearing that, and I'm like, I think I know what's gonna happen next. Like, I think they're gonna hook up, because why else would she be wearing that in this scene?
But yeah, she calls him. They flirt a little bit over the phone, and while he's talking to her, though, he's jotting down notes from his nightmare. That name, Jennifer Desiderio. Then we get the scene that we already explained, where he goes to reinvestigate the crime scene. He finds an address book with that name in it. He records the address and phone number. Valentin, the butler, tries to pay him off to leave, and he says, "Fuck you, asshole."
Yeah.
And the very next scene, I think, is at the sanitarium.
Shady Acres, yes.
Shady Acres. Yeah,
Make a cut. Can somebody make a cut, please, of them like walking and talking in? Like, yeah, he's been here for a while, and it's Jim Carrey out on the lawn.
That'd be great.
Oh man.
But yeah, there's he goes to visit Jennifer, and the gentleman who introduces him to the location and like gives him a briefing as to her current condition is it's a black guy. I can't remember his name, but he's a great character actor. He was in Collateral. He was the jazz musician in that got assassinated by Tom Cruise. I'm sorry I don't know his name, but he's the doctor, like the head of the facility, and he tells him that Jennifer thinks the devil's coming after her, and she's not terribly lucid. So if you want to talk to her, you can, but don't expect to get much. And also,
Barry Shabaka Henley.
Maybe you can clear this up for me, because
yes,
I can't remember, and I don't want to go back and check the tape, but. Did Bakula like always have like a little bit of like light highlights in the front of his hair?
I noticed it at one point, and I think that it was supposed to come after the nightmare.
I think so, because that's when I first noticed it, but I don't recall it from earlier in the film.
I don't either. But I'm looking at his photos right now, and he is about 40 years old when this is filmed. It might have been there, and it just might not have been as prominent. The whole
maybe
time.
The makeup people forgot to cover it up or something.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But if I had to guess, it probably came after his nightmare, if it does appear.
That was what I gathered from it.
Yeah. Because apparently that's supposed to happen if you're scared. Like, if you're like scared really bad, you're supposed to get like a.
Well, yeah, I remember the most prominent example I can think of is It, with the one bully character. When he encounters It, his hair goes like straight white after that. Henry Bowers or whatever. Anyway, so he meets Jennifer, and she is a little squirrely. There's a reason why she's in a confined space. They go for a little walk, and he starts throwing some buzzwords at her that start to register, namely Nix. Well, no, she says Nix, but he mentions Butterfield, And she's like, okay. But then he mentions Swan, and she's like, oh, I know Swan. And we do this neat effect where we keep cutting to random shots of a nearby like construction site. It's like somebody digging construction a ditch, workers. Basically. Yeah. There's some guys digging a hole, and we keep cutting to that, and the sound effects of the digging and the shoveling of dirt are playing over this entire conversation. And as we keep cutting back and forth, you can tell her anxiety level is going up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
And then it reaches fever pitch, and she tries to run away, and Bakula tries to stop her, and she mentions that like someone's coming back, and he's like, who? And she's like, Knicks, and he's like, Knicks, what the fuck? The New York Knicks? And then she rounds a corner and gets herself runned over by a car.
I think that nun could thump his ass.
Dude, in my notes, nurse/nun looks like she could fuck a bitch up. Because that lady looked tough.
Yeah,
and she stops him. Like, she stops him in his tracks.
Yeah. So, from here, I think we're gonna break into the magic house. If I'm not mistaken.
We go back to the magic castle.
Okay, so he's been breaking into a lot of places. Can PIs just break B&E legally? Can they just break and enter? Like, oh yeah, I'm a private investigator. I'm allowed to just do this.
I mean, if you're handsome like that, I'm sure.
He's gotten away with a lot of shit.
I'm sure it opens a lot of doors for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my guess.
Well, maybe that's why they hire private investigators, is because they have the skills of a detective, but they don't have to. Maybe they just don't get in as much trouble if they're caught breaking the law, catching people breaking the law. This is a fun scene. I like this whole sequence. Them having like a, what do you call it? Like an Indiana Jones moment. There he sees the symbol on the bookshelf. That was carved into, is it Quaid's head?
It was carved into the skinhead's head. It was like branded on his forehead. It looks like a trident kind of, or like a upside down cross or something.
And they're just I don't really know what they're looking for at this point. They're just looking for stuff.
Yeah, they're looking for stuff. It was kind of vague as to why exactly they're there, but Billy Who goes with Bakula, and I think Billy is the one who finds the symbol, and it's on a bookshelf, and he just depresses it on a whim, and it activates a trap door. I like that Billy Who prefaces things by saying, like, it'll be hidden, it'll be something hokey. It's like basically he knows magic is kind of corny, so he knows what to look for. But yeah, the trap vault that these documents, which they find in the wall, it's like a painting that opens up like a curtain kind of, but it's like a hole in the wall. There's a pressure lever on the floor that if you press it, it swings shut, and there's blades on it. So if your hand were in that hole, you would lose those hands. Yeah. Which, as a magician, your hands are your work. Yeah. Kyle is doing Siegfried and Roy hand gestures here. He has very educated fingers. Yeah, I like this scene too. Actually, the trap vault reminded me of a movie that I think I mentioned to you before. It's just called Necronomicon. It's a anthology. It's like a horror anthology. It's a series of shorts, very loosely based on Lovecraft stories. And the framing device throughout that movie is Jeffrey Combs as H.P. Lovecraft in some Arab country, and they have the actual Book of the Dead, like the actual Necronomicon there, and there's like a weird trap vault that he's trying to pull it out of that reminded me of that. Anyway, what did you think of the hologram monster?
I thought that was pretty funny. So I thought, like, when it looks like somebody like walks past, Bakula's kind of a dick here. He's like, I'm gonna walk over here, just walk over that way real quick, trying to get whoever's following them out, like to get them from behind the corner, which works. It's a monster. It's like a demon monster thing. It was pretty good. I'm like, it comes up, and I could tell it was a hologram. But Bakula comes up and is getting ready to shoot it, but then his gun goes through it, and he's like, "Oh, it's a fucking hologram." But what's the guy's name that's helping him?
Billy Who.
He's freaked out, like deservedly. Like it would be pretty scary.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was
like
pretty
bulging
good.
red eyes and exposed brain.
Yeah,
it's covered in blood. It looks like one of the brothers from Ghostbusters 2, which you haven't seen.
No, I haven't.
Scolari brothers. But it does look like a Ghostbusters monster or something. But it's semi-transparent, so you can tell it's not real. And it's the only monster in pretty much the whole movie.
So yeah,
I guess it's like their hokey security device. It's a hologram projection of a monster.
It's pretty. I mean, it would work on me. I would run for my life. Yeah. So they make out with the stuff they stole.
Yeah, they find some documents about like real magic, like real sorcery.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. The art reminded me of Evil Dead, in the sense that it's all very good, like pen and ink, like art. Mm-hmm. However, the illustrations are kind of comic booky, so it doesn't genuinely look ancient. It has too much fun to it, I guess. It looks too goofy. And then there's also a couple of stills, like a couple of black and white photographs of Nix, who, again, we saw earlier in the movie. And I think once they have these documents in hand, we get the pink dress.
Yes. Because next I have quick turn to a softcore porn setup, because that's exactly what's happening. Like the conversation, I'm like, is this Cinemax now? I mean, did I hit the button? Do I have Cinemax on here? They were still on. Because the dialogue specifically, he says something to her, and I'm like, yeah, this feels like porn. And then he goes over to her place, and then they hook up, like, legit. I thought that was interesting. I'm like, nice, yeah, that felt like that was gonna happen next. Because also her outfit was the other thing. I'm like, that's not gonna be on for very much longer. I can tell you that now.
I can't emphasize enough. You should probably look this up. Just this pink dress to me is hideous.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, and there's a couple of choice lines of dialogue here that I found particularly puzzling. One is kind of like, I guess, the coda for the whole film. It's, the flesh is a trap, and magic sets us free. Mm-hmm. I'm almost positive that's how the film ends. But she mentions that at some point when he's questioning her about like the nature of true magic and if Swan practiced it, which she does confess. But yeah, he like approaches her in her home, and Swan has himself like done up like Lennon in a coffin in his own home, and she's standing by the coffin being sad, and she says to Bakula, "You can't help me," and then he says, "You don't know that." Yeah. And he grabs her by the shoulders and he kisses her, and then they're fucking.
Yeah.
And it's not graphic at all. It's just like,
no, that we just cut to it, like they kiss, and
but yeah, you can't help me. You don't know that. Kiss? Okay, clothes are off.
Yeah. I thought they were gonna do it on his. I'm like, I thought maybe they were gonna do it on his coffin or something like that.
I mean, I half expected it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bakula. I know you're a handsome, charming fella. You don't come on to a lady when she's like standing in front of her dead husband in his home.
There's a really, 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 really heavy scene in Game of Thrones that involves something along these lines. Except there's even more going on with it. But there's sex at a wake, like at the coffin.
It's a confusing time for everyone, you know.
I think it's technically rape. It's rape at a funeral. So
okay, well, that's not confusing at all.
Yeah,
that's just bad.
It's very bad.
That's just wrong.
It's very, very, very heavy in the show. But yeah, so this is where we get my favorite computer graphics moment in the film. And I wrote it down when I was watching. My computer graphics are fascinating. So I don't even want to try to describe this sequence of, because it's the weirdest thing. I don't know what they were trying to get at. Honestly, like if you look this movie up, you can probably find this sequence. It'd be worth you just watching for that part of it, but It's bad. It's just weird.
I thought the fire effects were pretty good.
The fire effect was good. I'll give you that.
But the CGI origami man, not so much.
Not so much.
So yeah.
Don't know how that made it.
Yeah. So what Kyle is talking about is after the fucking. By the way, decent continuity on Bakula's wounds. He gets his hand injured very early in the film, and then he gets smacked in the face with a fucking board. I forgot to mention that. He gets his nose smashed in with a 2x4.
When he's investigating
the stage.
Yeah.
And, he gets like the mother of all ball punches in on Butterfield. By the way, he lifts him up off the floor with it.
He does.
That's like a shoryuken to the nuts. But yeah, I thought decent continuity because you got to have Bakula shirtless at this point. I mean, this is post-coital Bakula. So,
he's got to have that shirt off.
He hears some noises downstairs, and he needs to go investigate. And Dorothea, Famke, she thinks it's Nyx. So like that's a major theme throughout this movie is all the characters who are in the know about all the magic and stuff, they're thoroughly convinced that this Nyx fella is coming back no matter what. Mm-hmm. He's like a force of nature. But yeah, Bakula goes down to investigate, revolver in tow, and he did not bother to put on a shirt because why not? And he is greased to the tits, like, and he's got the good ab light too.
Yeah, he's got heels on.
Oh yeah, no, he's got the great overhead lighting going.
Oh yeah,
it's spectacular. And I noticed they did some makeup on his torso, like some on his ribs too, which was like some bruising basically, which didn't have to be there, but it was a nice detail. Mm-hmm. And yeah, some fire streaks across the tile floor and starts chasing him throughout the mansion. And but along with the fire, we get this like vaguely humanoid shape that's done in like rust-colored CGI, and it looks like a bunch of geometric shapes that I was thinking of like origami. Mm-hmm. It's because it's a lot of like
that's what it looks like,
shapes and stuff. And it's like alternatively a fireman and a computer-generated origami man.
Well, it looks like you know those those triangle footballs you'd make in elementary school.
Yeah.
It just looks like that's being made and taken apart, several times, and then just.
It looks like an unfinished special effect.
Yeah.
And this is 1995, so CGI was a thing. It was a thing, but it was in its infancy.
Yes.
Not every movie was Jurassic Park or The Mask. Those were few and far between. But it just felt like an extraneous effect that's like, let's do this thing. It's like, we don't quite know how, and we don't quite have enough money. It's like, well, shit, we didn't have a plan B. They probably just should have done the fire.
Yeah.
And I think this is when things go tits up for everyone.
Pretty much,
when, Butterfield re-enters the story.
Yeah, this is pretty much where it goes downhill. He tortures. He manages to get a hold of the butler dude. He kind of a rough little sequence here. He's basically straddling his head. And he's like, tell me where they're going, and he's like, I don't know where they're going. So he cuts his gums underneath his teeth, which is an odd place to cut somebody, but effective nonetheless. So he means business. He's like, okay, now he's like, I can just pluck your eye out really easily. Why don't you tell me where they're at? And he doesn't know, so he starts like cutting at his eye, and finally he's like, there you go. He's like, he knows where Nyx is buried. That's what he's trying to find. Is the followers are trying to find him, and I think he tells them. If I'm not mistaken.
I skipped over one thing is that Bakula learns that Swan is still alive. Mm-hmm. The butler was helping cover it up.
Yeah,
and so now everybody knows that. Well, all the main characters know that Swan is actually alive. So KJOC is back in the picture. They go ahead and they do a funeral for him, which he attends at a distance. And
he pulls his fucking jaw off.
Yeah, that's right. Bakula proves that KJOC is still alive by going to the body in the coffin and just yanking its jaw clean off.
Yeah, this even shocked me. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing?
Like, whoa, get your fingers out of there.
Jesus.
That is a dead man.
Remember Ace Ventura's parlor scene where he's got Einhorn like in front of all the cops? Like, this would have been funny if this was that, except he goes to pull his jaw and he's like a real person. Like, oh shit.
Yeah. But yeah, turns out it's like a very complex mannequin or something.
Yeah.
The casting on this thing's face was actually pretty incredible. Like the
he
skin
looks like a
texture
corpse.
on it looked legit.
Yeah, it looks like a corpse.
Yeah.
It was really good.
But yeah, Swan, being a magician, can't help but attend his own funeral because it is a kind of an illusion. And Bakula sees him in the crowd and tracks him down into a sewer tunnel, where Swan is shown to be using his legitimate magical powers to levitate a car over Bakula's head.
Yeah, where the fuck did this car come from?
Yeah, it's in a sewer tunnel that doesn't look even big enough to house. Like, how did he get it in there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how
I
it got
don't
in there.
either, but
he might have actually been magically keeping it on the ceiling, and then when Bakula came in, he just lowered it.
It's like
yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Like, okay, so I'm glad that Stephen Sommers came in the picture because he I think he's the one that finally got KJOC to cut his stupid fucking hair, because him in Deep Rising and his hair in this, I'm like, dude, cut your hair. You look ridiculous.
Yeah, he looks like Nick Cage in Next, if you've ever seen that.
I didn't see that, but
he does. Worth a watch.
He does have a bit of a Cage mullet.
He has some plumage going. Got some Cajun plumage.
Kevin, it's nice to finally meet you. You're a hero of mine.
It's like you're a real inspiration to me. Guys with shitty hairlines like us, we should hang together more often, you know.
Did you see Mandy? You really should. I'm really proud of it.
It's a work of art. I'm really proud of it, KJO. See, you should come see it.
Also,
I'll get you a job on the set next time, you know.
Maybe
you should come by the house. We'll summer sometime.
We need a good editor. Have you ever done it? That's okay. You'll figure it out.
Like, yeah, you know that movie you did with the octopus monsters? That was really cool.
That was really cool.
That was really cool. I liked it a lot. Anyway,
yeah.
So KJOC drops this car. It misses, probably intentionally, but
yeah,
I liked his acting here because he is exhausted. You can tell he can lift a car, but it takes some doing.
Mm-hmm.
And this also starts to reveal. This is where Bakula's casting and his involvement in the story actually started to make sense for me, because I was questioning it like most of the movie. He just never seemed right to me. What we get from this exchange between the two of them is that Swan claims to be like trying to be a martyr for Famke, but really he's just afraid. Yeah. He's terrified of Nyx. Like, he's absolutely terrified of Nyx.
I am too.
And yeah, no, he's a scary fucking guy.
Yeah, he's creepy.
Which I'm actually glad they didn't overuse him for that purpose. But yeah, we learned that he's afraid. And the reason why I say it started to make sense to me is that Bakula doesn't have a reason to be afraid of this character.
No, he doesn't.
So he's the guy who gets things moving. Is all the other main characters who have more of a personal stake in the proceedings, they're all too scared to do anything. They're petrified.
Yeah.
Whereas Bakula, he doesn't have the insight to have a reason to be afraid. So he's just like, "What the fuck's your problem? Let's go get him." But Swan's just like looking for excuses every chance he gets. Like he went far enough to try to kill himself, like to fake his own death to avoid confronting this person.
Yeah, he's Kevin J. O'Connor's really good at playing a very, I guess, not insecure, but not confident person. Because that's most of the characters I've seen him as. I think his most confident was in There Will Be Blood, but his confidence hits a wall at one point.
Well, his insecurities manifest in the sense that he has to come clean at some point. That he is not, in fact, a relative. and
Yeah.
that was not a wise choice. But yeah, I think this is where the butler is now in the hands of Butterfield, and the butler knows where Nix is buried. The maid, however, did not, and she was simply killed. So now Butterfield, off-screen, mind you, has abducted both the butler and Famke. And he has the butler driving for him, by the way. And he's in the back seat of this car with Famke, and he's showing her his surgical instruments that he said he built himself. We get a nice exchange between him and her here, where again we get that hint of Nebula in him, where she's like, "Why did you wait 13 years to resurrect this guy that you're like so infatuated with?" And he actually just straight up says, "I didn't have a teacher. Like, I had to teach myself how to resurrect him, because the guy who was supposed to teach me these things is the very guy who would have taught me how." The guy who's dead.
I'm noticing a common thing between this movie and the Hellraiser series, well, at least the ones that he was a part of. Pain seems to be a very big
S&M stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, very much in Hellraiser. I mean, the whole point of the Cenobites is they torture. Like, that's what they do, is they torture people for eternity. And pain seems to be a part of this as well. But it's a little bit different. And here, like, the sidekicks... maybe torture is a better way to describe it.
It's definitely a connection. I
wonder,
don't know. Maybe Clive Barker is into that particular kink. I don't know.
No, I'm thinking more along the lines of, like you mentioned, he's from a different generation of a different generation of gay, where it wasn't widely accepted. It was probably much harder to be out, and maybe that's kind of the motif, or maybe that was how he's putting it. Like, it's very it was torture for him to be like not out, or just to...
No, I think that's probably accurate, because I mean, again, Nightbreed, the entire concept is it's a surrogate family of strange otherworldly beings that find each other and leave mainstream society because they're shunned. And I mean, it's all dealing with taboos, I guess. Like,
yeah, I just
beyond the mainstream kind of stuff.
I just kind of came to that realization. I haven't thought about it or read about it enough to really discuss it now, but it just kind of popped into my head.
It's all just theory and conjecture on my part.
Yeah.
It's just noticing certain themes and patterns.
I'm sure somebody's written a paper about Clive Barker.
I think he's a fascinating guy. I'd be curious to read it, because everything I've read about him sounds like just an interesting fella.
I might look for some articles.
I feel I owe it to him to pick up one of his books at some point, because I've read about him and watched like think pieces, and in fact I watched a documentary about the making of Hellraiser, which he also directed.
Yeah.
That was
I'm gonna look at Google. I'm gonna look at Google Scholar, see if I can't find a paper written an academic paper written about Clive Barker.
Yeah, you let me know.
Not Clive Owen.
But yeah,
are we to the showdown now?
Yeah. Long story short, Butterfield has the butler dig up Nix, and he slashes the fuck out of the butler off screen.
Oh.
But Bakula recruits Swan, and they drive out to the gravesite together, just in time to find the butler dying.
Yeah.
We get a pretty cool line of dialogue from the butler, which he's like portrayed, like he's framed as kind of like a squirrely, untrustworthy character early on, especially when he tries to bribe him.
Yeah.
But he's redeemed around the time Swan is brought back into the story. His last words I liked. He says, "My apologies to Moore. You're about to lose one more," in reference to like, I don't want to lose any more people, and then he just expires, and it's pretty cool. But also in that scene, when they find Valentin, KJOC, his acting was pretty good. So Bakula jumps out of the car and immediately goes into the hole where they extracted Nix from to investigate, and KJOC just stays put and he actually like you can see him like talking to himself, saying like, "Get out of the car, get out of the car, get out of the car," because again, we're trying to emphasize that he's terrified, and it takes some doing. And even when his like confidant, like his butler, the man who like watched him wipe his ass like every day of his life, even when he's dying, Swan is just like looking off into the distance and facing away from everything, and he just wants nothing to do with it. And it takes Bakula pretty much has to like bully him to get him to get back in the car and go to the crack den where this all began.
Yeah, where the cult people haven't aged a day.
I know, that was a little weird.
Like, they've still just been like hanging out there, and they look the exact same age.
Yeah, so apparently Butterfield got the word out real fast, pre-internet, mind you. He got the word out real fast, and he got the whole band back together in the same place.
Yeah.
So everybody comes home. Get this like orgy / celebration where they're all like rubbing up on each other and like shaving their own heads with like dull knives. Yeah,
I called it the fuck room.
The fuck, yeah, very much so.
it's the fuck room. They're all boned up. So they've dug him back up basically, and that was kind of what you mentioned earlier at the asylum. The guy's digging, and that's kind of
that's a foreshadowing.
Yeah, foreshadowing. So they bring him back. They take off. I think they take off the metal the iron masks. Because it's like a two-piece. It was like here, and then they put another one over his mouth.
Yeah, there's a piece that goes over his eye and his forehead, and then another piece that's affixed on top of that covers his mouth. By the way, this sequence when they're removing the mask from him is actually probably the reason I picked this movie for you.
I figured this whole last scene was why you picked it.
Because the makeup effects and the editing and the use of music, it all kind of comes together here. Yeah. And that sequence in particular, when they're removing the mask, I thought was very well done. It's very good visual storytelling. Because not a word is spoken during that whole like minute-long scene.
Yeah, he gets out, and he has Famke in his clutches, and it's cool. I like the makeup on him. It looks pretty good. This is where
he's like rotten and like slightly mummified, but I like the imprint of the mask on his face. Yeah. So he's brown, and this is a very white gentleman. And so his head to toe, his skin is like rotted and kind of brownish. But the portions of his face where the mask was making direct contact with his skull, you know when you take a Band-Aid off? Yeah. It looks like that, where it looks like it's been deprived of air and the circulation isn't as good as the rest of him. So he has like these lighter portions of his face that are gooier. It's just really good makeup.
This is where I had the note, have people in cults never read about cults? Because I think these cult people are willing to sacrifice themselves for him. They're like, take me. And he's like, you all are a bunch of fucking losers. And he basically they sink into the sand. Like there's no floor. They're just standing in sand, and they all sink down. And I thought this was cool. This was the part that I thought was neat. Is they all get stuck in the sand basically. They're all like heads and a little bit of a hand here and there. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, that actually really upset me when I was young and saw this movie for the first time. Because I was like 9 years old or something when I saw this. And for some reason, the people being buried alive and him like very cruelly dismissing them upset me. Like it made me a little scared, I guess. More so than the other effects in the movie. But yeah, basically he's saying like, I'm back to like show you the secrets of the realm beyond, so like death, I guess. But he actually says to them like, I escaped from the grave, so now I need to give back. Yeah. So he tells them what's gonna happen, but they don't really care. They're too busy stroking each other and stuff. Yeah, they're having a good time.
whatever ecstasy or Molly they got must have been just dynamite.
I like that effect though of him like opening a rain cloud indoors.
Yeah,
the ground.
That was
up. That was pretty cool.
That was
it was
pretty
very
good.
unique too. Fun little note here. Again, lending credence to the Nebula Gamora connection. When Nyx first is resurrected, his first words with Butterfield in the room are, "Where is Swan?"
Yeah.
So it's like, oh,
Where's Gamora?
I studied for 13 years to bring you back to life, and you ask about the other guy.
It's been nice if you just spit in his face. Like,
you ask about the guy with the bad hair. It's like, you think these pants are comfortable? It's like,
now this part of the movie, I was pretty much just visually like we were rounding down here. I'm like, okay, I'm not really paying attention to what they're saying. I'm kind of just visually taking in the movie now,
which is how to do it at this point.
Yeah, I don't. It's all just kind of so. He does have a nice little from beyond hole in the head. I was waiting for it to shoot out like the. It never popped out all the way. It just kind of stays there. Prairie dogs.
He never got his anglerfish thing going.
From Beyond, man, that is a weird movie.
Yeah, I actually have a movie that I recently put on our list of upcoming episodes that makeup technicians who worked on that, and I think a couple of the cast members are in, so stay tuned for that, I guess.
Okay. But I mean, I can't really describe this scene verbally, like just visually what's happening.
So let me run through the series of events. Bakula and Swan break in. Butterfield tries to fight them. We have a magician's battle here. It's very brief, but Swan barfs a snake made of fire out onto a table, and it bites Butterfield on the face and horribly burns him and scars him. Nyx is chasing Famke around the house. Bakula manages to find him, and Nyx does his fingers in the temple trick to him. So we get a repeat of that face-tearing effect we saw at the very beginning of the movie. And then Famke again shoots him, this time in the little antenna hole in the middle of his forehead. Yeah. But just like before, he gets right back up. He has some strange dialogue, Nyx does.
Yeah.
Most of what he's saying is that very culty stuff where it's like, I don't quite know what you're trying to say, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Really good one I noted, though, was I wasn't born to show people the error of their ways. I was born to murder the world.
I mean, that's kind of how Hellraiser talks, too. Like, he's just, this is not for your eyes.
Yeah,
like,
it's, it sounds good.
It sounds good,
When you actually break down the meaning of the words being said, it's pretty empty.
Yeah.
But it does sound really cool. It's more like poetry, I guess. Like, just focus on the flowery nature of it.
Yeah.
We get a funny moment here where Nyx is trying to convince Swan to rejoin him, and kind of like a beaten dog, Swan has he has these automatic responses where he like collapses onto his knees, and Nyx is trying to convince him to rejoin him, and everything that is said to him, no matter what it is, he just responds hollowly, like in a hollow manner, I guess, with just yes. It sounds like an abusive relationship or something. It's just he's falling back into the pattern, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's well acted, but as soon as Famke enters the room, like Nyx is like, "What? Hang on, you still care about her?" And Nyx takes offense to this, and we get these like crazy zoom effects where he's doing like psychic X-ray punches on Swan, and like it's kind of cool actually. Like the camera zooms into different parts of KJOC's body, and like you can see like ribs snapping and like his heart like getting punctured and his brain getting like punched in and stuff. But with every one of these zooms, he says a different word. He says, "Will you never learn?" That's really cheesy and stupid, but it's violent. It's kind of cool. But yeah, long story short, because there's a whole mess of effects here, and it's just not worth going into.
Nah, it's just
Nick's. I don't know how to describe. I described it as like sea slug made of shit. So he has these like prickly, like semi-transparent gooey bits coming out of him.
yeah.
Like and it looks like, if you've ever seen a sea slug, it looks kind of like that unraveling, and I'm guessing they just like blew compressed air into some weirdly shaped and textured balloons. Really interesting makeup effects, but another quotable from Nix in this scene is, I was a man who wanted to be a god but changed his mind, and then I don't know what to make of this, but the follow-up to it was, I'm going to be rotten shit now. That's very strange.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. But anyway, he goes into like full-on monster mode here. So like his head turns into a skull with these like shit-covered sea slugs coming out of his eye holes. Bakula asks Swan to levitate him for no reason, and then he like slides him up to Nyx. Bakula sticks his hands inside of Nick's eyes.
Yeah.
And throws him into this. Oh, there's a portal to hell, by the way, that opened up in the middle of the room.
A portal to the core. To the core.
Say. Okay.
I think it's a portal to the core.
A portal to Hillary Swank.
Core portal. Yeah.
A portal to rejoin Hillary Swank and all them people.
What is that one? God damn it. Core. Just Core is the name of it, isn't it? The Core.
Yeah, it's the Core.
Yeah, okay,
Wasn't
yeah.
Aaron Eckhart and Hillary Swank, or the other way around? Yeah, it's the other way around, because Aaron Eckhart's not a household name.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought he was. After I watched Thank You for Smoking, I'm like, oh, this guy's a big deal now. And I'm like, nope, just not at all. Like, he just dropped off after.
I liked him.
Yeah, he's fine.
But, you can't do shit like I, Frankenstein, and, Olympus Has Fallen, and be a top drawing star.
You haven't seen Thank You for Smoking.
I have not.
Bam, there we go.
Okay, I'll add it to the list.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Nyx goes to the core. KJOC dies.
KJOC dies again. And he met the president of the United States.
The house starts to collapse in on it starts to like blow up, because I guess Nyx is not quite dead, so he's like shooting his hell essence up from the core. We get a really badly CGI'd effect where KJOC gets picked up by like a indoor hurricane, and his flesh is stripped from his bones.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very extraneous CGI effect. Again, the money and the skill were not quite there.
Still better than the origami monster in the mansion.
Yeah, still better than the origami monster, but did we really need this? Why couldn't it have just ended,
It could have ended, but I do like what they did. You get sucked down. Man, I feel like Steven Sommers watched this movie a couple times before. Seriously, because
I wouldn't doubt it.
Because
it seems right up his alley.
He gets sucked down to the bone, and then he's a skeleton, basically, which happens in another movie that has Kevin J. O'Connor. The Mummy.
Well, maybe I could be wrong, but maybe Steven Sommers was a special effects technician, and maybe he worked on this movie. I don't know.
I'm actually gonna look it up right now while we finish this up here.
But yeah, biggest thing that the whole end of this movie is kind of a mess, but it has some really nifty effects, especially the makeup and stuff. The levitation thing just still sticks out at me as like a what the fuck kind of moment, because it was not necessary. And the way he defeated Nyx, he just kind of sticks his hands into his eyes and throws him. It's like, why did you need to be elevated 3 feet to do that?
I'm sorry. Can I stop you real quick? I'm sorry. We talked about something, I think, on The Thing, or we were talking about a movie about makeup effects, and I told you that there was this guy from the makeup department, and I couldn't remember what he looked like, but he definitely has his black and white picture with his Oscar. It's Howard Berger.
Howard Berger?
Have you not heard of him?
I'd have to see a picture, but
I'm going to give you his. I'm sorry to take a break in here, but this was driving me nuts for so long because we talked about this a long time ago. He has done a lot. I'm still scrolling through. I'm at 2001, and I'm still like, there's so many movies. I'll start real quick from. I want to find the 70s. So, Day of the Dead, special makeup, Invasion USA.
I know who you're talking about.
Evil Dead 2,
Again,
Creep
like I
Show
said,
2.
I had to see a face. He featured very prominently in that Nightmare on Elm Street documentary I've told you about.
Bride of Reanimator. Several Tales from the Crypt, Misery.
Wishmaster, Night of the Creeps.
Army of Darkness, Maniac Cop 3, a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Pulp
he
Fiction,
looks
New
like a
Nightmare.
heavy metal roadie.
He's done he's Lord of Illusions. I'm like, oh my god, I finally found him. It's here. But yeah, he's done Spawn, Boogie Nights, Scream. He's done fucking everything.
Yeah, I didn't know him by name, but as soon as I saw his face, I was like, oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Very
I was
cool.
I was looking for Steven Sommers. I think I'm just gonna look him up and maybe find out. But anyway.
But yeah, the movie ends with Famke and Bakula walking off into the desert. I guess they still had a car, so they could leave, which is good. But it's kind of funny because I wouldn't have minded actually if this became a franchise, like the ongoing Chronicles of Harry D'Amour.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've neglected to mention during the Origami Man sequence, during the fire chase, when Bakula is shirtless, he has a very intricate tattoo, like a very interesting glyph of some sort on his back.
I didn't. Oh yeah, we never see it, do we? Though, like we keep kind of getting hints at it.
That's the only time we see it because it's the only time he's shirtless and he has his back to us. But it's very big. It draws a lot of attention to itself, and it's never addressed, which makes me think there's more of a story to this character. In fact, I should probably look this up right now while we're looking stuff up because I feel like this is a literary character of some sort. Yeah. He's a character that's featured in Clive Barker's works.
I don't notice anything explicitly. Like, I feel like there's some stuff cut out of this. I feel like there was more to this movie. There's a few scenes that, like, I'm like, man, it looks like they cut something out. Like, even the sex scene, like, because they kind of...
Oh, yeah, it's too brief.
Yeah, I
feel
feel
it's
like
not even Bond sex. It's like just like fade to black and then we're done.
The build up to it didn't get its due. Like, I feel like they built up to it and we were going to actually get like a good 90 second, maybe 45 to 90 second like sex scene or something like that, but didn't happen. But I feel like there could have very well been, because there's a few other instances where I feel like the editing, it jumps kind of abruptly, and I'm like, I feel like there was more to that scene.
It may have been budget related because this movie is very front and back heavy.
Very much.
The middle is kind of slow, and the special effects are mostly relegated to the back half of things.
Yeah.
And also in 1995, I think Clive Barker's star was beginning to wane because Hellraiser, and I know Nightbreed was very expensive, and that was the late 80s or early 90s, I think. And it was very expensive and not very successful. And that was like entirely his baby. So I could totally see maybe the studio being a little reticent about dumping a bunch of money into the hands of someone who didn't really knock it out of the park last time.
Yeah.
So I could totally see that, where it's like we have a first and a third act, but we gotta pace it out for the middle because we don't have any money. But yeah, like I said, I don't really have any like super strong attachment to this film. It's just there's certain images and moments that really stuck with me because I did see this when I was very young, and parts of it did like legitimately kind of scare me. And yeah, I am glad that I looked up this character because I guess he is part of an ongoing series of stories. This Harry D'Amour. Truthfully, I wouldn't have minded if they made another movie. In fact, there's still time. Still
like Deep Rising. Man, I feel like Famke got screwed out of a couple of franchises because Deep Rising could have been a fun one.
Yeah,
we talked about that.
They had a sequel bait at the end.
Yeah, and they could have kept going with this.
No, I mean she found her franchise later.
Yeah,
X-Man's.
Yeah. Yep, she found it.
Yeah. Famke's doing just fine. Although those Taken movies kind of went up shit.
That's
anything else you want to say about Lord of Illusions?
No, I mean it was kind of fun. Better than Hellraiser, I'll be honest. Because as Kevin J. O'Connor, who I enjoy, he always has a nice presence.
Yeah, he's always welcome.
Yeah, very front and back heavy. Watch it for. I'd say give it a watch. It's fun. There's stuff you can find interesting.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for joining us for Lord of Illusions. Join us next time as we catch up on cinema.
Yup.